Now, we actually just had another guest on the show last week who had also paid their dues at Massimo. Mark Simpson.
Mark Simpson
was employee number 8.
Oh, okay. So Mark Simpson is my best friend from college.
Yeah. No way.
Yes.
Yeah. He was on the show last week.
Oh my gosh, we were best men in each other's weddings, and we've driven all over the planet together. We've been in Indonesia 6 times together.
Get out of here. I met him while I was working at surf shops up in Marin, where he was living with Sherry and raising the kids.
Unbelievable.
That is mental. I mean, talk about a standout guy as your best friend. Congrats to these two. They know how to pick them, folks.
He's the one that got me the job at Massimo. Like,
Really?
And even worse than that, he was a waiter at Spoons, and I went to get a job there, and I got denied. So
That's tough.
He would come home with his tip money every night. I was like, Jesus, what does Simpson have that I don't?
Welcome back to Happening Now with Hammer. I'm your host, Cousin Adam, coming to you from Newport Beach. We got a special show for you this week, and Hammer's going to tell you a little bit more about it so you don't get blinded by the talent we've got on here today. But before we get into that, I want to start off with a couple words from one of America's greatest authors. The master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he's always doing both.
You know, it's interesting, Adam. People always, or a lot of people, complain about work, right? They're like, oh, I got to get up and go to work. But if you love and you're passionate about what you do, there's never a day of work. It's always a day of love, just like that poem said. So today we have somebody that has never worked a day in his life because he has passion for what he does. So Shane Baum is our guest today. And Shane, thank you for coming today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Hammer.
I didn't know a lot about sunglasses. I just pop on those gas station $2 sunglasses that are supposed to blind you. But it's amazing how intense sunglasses and glasses overall have come. Because you used to be, 60s, 70s, if you had glasses, you were a nerd, right? And it wasn't a piece of jewelry. I mean, what you're doing, this is jewelry for the face, right?
Yeah, of course. I always thought there was a little bit of a disconnect from, of course, back in the day, they were government issued, or you did it so you could see the chalkboard. You would
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe 60s, 70s too, you were trying to hide the way your eyes looked after a certain lunch break.
Yeah, that was you, Adam.
Okay.
Or a darker shade at the beach.
Yeah,
Exactly. I've never looked at any woman, sweetheart.
I love those mirrored ones.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason they were popular.
Oh yeah, you know that.
70s style. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this? What got you to this?
I'll tell you what, I studied industrial engineering in college, and I was kind of a terrible student.
We got something in common.
Graduated barely. And ended up working for a fashion company here from Southern California. My buddy had a beach house down here, so on summers we would come down and visit, and met a guy named Massimo.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, and he just said, hey, we're hiring right now, so I went to work when there was about 10 people in that company.
Oh, wow.
And and we went through...
For all you young people out there, back in the day, we're talking 80s, 90s, Massimo was it, period.
Yeah, they called him the Calvin Klein of the West Coast.
Absolutely.
We went from about 10 people to about 300. We went public in the spring of '96.
How long did it take to get to that number? What were the years?
I want to say, I went to work when the company was about 3 years old, and so it took another 6 maybe to get there.
Wow, that's quick.
And pretty quick. And when I started in the eyewear division, there was 2 people in it. There was one lady who did all the cool things, went to the factories in Italy and worked on the product development, everything else.
Got to live the life.
Yeah, and I answered the phone and said, "Hello, Massimo Optic, may I help you?" And but learned to import and export, manage cost of goods sold, and I was I was working nights and weekends and just I would go in and find the P&L and the income statement. And
So for you younger folks, that's called paying your dues, right, bro?
100%. I tell younger people when they're on the way up, like if you want to be great, understand every job in the company before you take the reins. And so, it's a really important thing.
I'm going to tell you, Elon Musk, all those boys, this guy, myself, we've all done toilets. It's the way it works. You got to know everything, right?
Every time I take the trash out, I make sure that it's memorialized.
Very good.
Now, we actually just had another guest on the show last week who had also paid their dues at Massimo. Mark Simpson.
Mark Simpson
was employee number 8.
Finished that up, and I ended up back down here working in a clothing warehouse for a company that is long in history. Hammer, you're going to remember them. Massimo, remember them?
Love Massimo, man.
Oh yeah,
they were the pioneers.
Dude, I was number 18 employee working in the warehouse at Massimo. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Now, were those like kind of the days too where you would like on a carbon copy piece of paper write down your hours for the week and be like, no, I swear.
No, we didn't have ink back then.
Geez, you did.
No, but we would get orders in, and the orders had just started coming in by this crazy machine called the facsimile. It was amazing. And it would beep, and it would print out orders that people had handwritten. It was so crazy. I was like, holy shit, this is technology.
Oh, okay. So Mark Simpson is my best friend from college.
Yeah. No way.
Yes.
He was on the show last week.
Oh my gosh, we were best men in each other's weddings, and we've driven all over the planet together. We've been in Indonesia 6 times together.
Get out of here.
Why?
I met him while I was working at surf shops up in Marin, where he was living with Sherry and raising the kids.
Unbelievable.
That is mental. I mean, talk about a standout guy as your best friend. Congrats to these two. They know how to pick them, folks.
He's the one that got me the job at Massimo. Like,
Oh,
he got the
really?
money at the first one. And even worse than that, he was a waiter at Spoons, and I went to get a job there, and I got denied. So
That's tough.
He would come up with this tip money every night. And I was like, Jesus, what does Simpson have that I don't
He
have?
probably said, "Don't hire that cat." Behind your back stuff. You know how that goes.
Oh man, Simpson's the best.
What an awesome common starting point for you guys now, and both still being involved with apparel and fashion out of Orange County, too.
No, 100%. So we started together. We worked in the warehouse together at Massimo, and he was, truth be told, he was a little jealous when I got to ship eyewear because it was a lot less invasive and easier than shipping the apparel. So we were both warehouse guys there at the same time.
So that's why he was talking shit about you. Okay. That's what friends do.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, exactly.
He would want to stay at a schedule that's flexible enough to keep him close to the water, though, whereas it sounded like you got to luck out and really go spend a little more time abroad, answering phones in Italy.
Well, I mean, yeah, I went to Italy for the first time, I think I want to say 92 or 93 or something like that. He was able to go like the year or two after, but we were always like, best friends / competitive,
Of course.
Everybody wanted to make the same amount of money, and so, I had a little cage in the corner of the warehouse, and I had my own phone and computer, and he was still kind of like filling boxes in the warehouse, and so he was a little bitter for 2 or 3 months.
Well, that's what happens with friends.
Yeah.
You got to push each other. That's the beautiful thing. So what happened? What got you to this point? You were at Massimo, then where did we jump to?
Yeah, I was there 9 years, and like I said, we went public.
And how old were you then?
I was in my 20s, so I mean, like I had a really good break early in my career because they said you're going to be part of this division, and we went from like 0 to I don't know, like somewhere around 10 million. So all of a sudden I find myself like early 20s VP of a $10 million division, and we're going public, and so I'm able to sit in management meetings with with executives from Tommy Hilfiger, from Calvin Klein, from some of the best couture brands on the planet.
Did they give you one of those guns that shoot cash? Did you?
Well, I always tell you the one thing that I learned during that time is that don't discount the people that got you there. And so a lot of people were really talented and got they were told to to report to somebody else. It's like, Hammer, you've done great so far. You don't have a formal education, but you're now going to report to this person who's much more accomplished than you. And so you saw a lot of the DNA of the company kind of get extinguished by.
It's not a very good example. That happened a lot to me. So, but you didn't have, you had that engineering degree, right? But what got you to move forward on this and go, okay, I would like to design?
Well, I went to work for Optical Shop of Aspen. Well, first of all, let me
Back up.
regress a little bit. The designs that we were getting from a firm that we had hired weren't coming in that great. So I just said, like, I have some ideas, but I don't know how to articulate them. So I just started saying nights and weekend. I would work in the graphic department. They taught me how to do Adobe Illustrator, and so for me it was kind of an after-hours hobby. But I learned to move the lines around enough that I could make a technical drawing, and I had done AutoCAD in college, and so kind of understood the three-dimensional, view of how you would move shapes around.
And guys, that's not a hobby. What that is taking control of your life and moving yourself forward. Great lesson.
And so, after that, I just started putting designs to paper, and then I realized what we were paying the design team, and so I just said, like, I don't think we need them anymore. And so at that point, I guess I declared myself a designer, which I think it's important to understand that design is just an opinion. I know you love old cars, and we both love, old things. And at the end of the day, like, somebody can see like a beautiful, Porsche 356 or something like that, and they're like, that's a beautiful design, and that homage goes to the person that put the pencil to paper, and it can be voted on from a 10-year-old kid to a 100-year-old guy, and they're like, that's a beautiful design. And so it's an opinion, but in order to be a designer, you have to have the medium to be able to express your ideas. And so that's the only difference. Yeah.
You have to have that. You got to have the Daimler mentality, as I call it.
Yeah, 1,000%. After learning how to design, with the graphic department, I just started putting my concepts to paper.
And how old were you about this time when you got that break?
Kind of like 20.
So you're still in your 20s?
Yeah, I'm still in my 20s, yeah.
That's awesome.
A great opportunity. And so, but then, the stock went from 52 to 26 to 4 and some change, and then got delisted.
Yes.
And so then we ended up doing a deal with Target, and the company went from 300 people back down to 60 or 70. And I would say I learned way more on the way down than the way up.
But wasn't it more successful money-wise at Target?
Well, yeah. I mean, that was, the epitome of, what would you call it? I guess selling out, taking
That's
something.
exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Massimo took the cash and ran, which you can't blame him.
No, not at all. I mean,
But he killed that brand as being it was a much better brand than one that got there.
He paved the way for that to happen all throughout the surf industry.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I saw that Pat Tenori was doing he's doing an art show coming up, and they have I just saw it yesterday. They have
Exit through the surf shop.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the picture of all the brands that were like just massive at one point, and you probably saw it with all the gravestones and everything. And
Yeah.
I love the gravestone thing. That's exactly the way it should be. I mean, or the sellout sign.
Yeah, I mean,
But I don't blame those guys for selling out.
Yeah, I don't either. Although, I mean, when you talk about the master at the art of living and doing something into perpetuity, like you can look at Stussy, for example, and they're the one stronghold that didn't sell out, and they kind of quietly go around to like a little core business globally, and so I guess who knows what the intent is? I guess
Isn't it amazing, this little hub that we live in here? It's so artistic and creative.
Yeah, it is incredible.
I mean, I was talking to your wife earlier, who's a beautiful lady, by the way. You lucky guy, you.
Thank you.
It's amazing how you, within a 5-block radius of where this studio and your shop is, where we happen to be neighbors, it's the creativity is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. I mean, it's and it's not like it just started. I mean, I remember during that time in my 20s, meeting guys like Bob McKnight or Bob Hurley, which were real mentors of mine, who were entrepreneurs that were just making stuff happening and doing great things. And it's a real hub of creativity, specifically in surf culture, but also just in Southern California culture.
Well, we had Doug Rugg in here, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And that surfboard company, I mean, that was in the 50s.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it is like the perfect weather, the proximity to Mexico, or just like the awesome location you guys have near so much manufacturing that helped create surfboards, made it easy for a bunch of guys who would try and spend most of their time in Baja to start making clothes here so that they could then buy a second house in Baja and start this pipe dream. But it's maintained this position as a place that has an enduring creativity and has established like a global style.
But I think to take your point a little bit further, I mean, like, you know, how do I grow up in a town of 2,500 and end up in Southern California? And so, like, you have to take risk and risk takers. And since the beginning of time, I mean, like hopping in a covered wagon and saying, like, I'm going west. You know, I was just up in Butte, Montana earlier this week, and some people said there's gold in them hills, and yeah, first time I've worn a cowboy hat all year.
We're in Yellowstone here, guys. Kevin's coming here in a minute. I'm not sure where he's at, but
very popular show.
You know, and creative people tend to, you know, bunch together just like anything.
Yeah.
You know, every industry tends to do that, if it's sports or whatever. I mean, we've interviewed, you know, you name it, but all these industries, if it's a good industry and a smart industry, you are collective.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. Your wife showed me this, and there were some sunglasses from Louis Vuitton that you designed.
Yeah.
And I happen to own 2 of them.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Now I'm not going to wear them anymore because they're going to be in a special place in the sunglass place. But I'm a little bit of a freak about sunglasses. I guess because I've been in the industry so long, I've always liked, you know, it's another accessory when you're doing something, right?
Yeah.
So let's move ahead a little bit and then we'll go backwards, but let's talk about your brand and what's going on with your brand. Your brand is very sophisticated, a little bit too high sophisticated for me, but